Okay, No Country for Young Men. Old Men. No Country for Old Men. This movie was a 2007 Western thriller that was originally a novel written by Cormac McCarthy, which was then later adapted into a screenplay and then written and directed by the Coen brothers, who are known for working within a specific genre so that they can subvert or make a parody of that genre. A lot of their other work is done in similar avenues of filmmaking, but they do tend to stick to the Western. For example, you got The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, you got True Grit, etc. And just like any other modern movie that works within a specific genre, No Country for Old Men brought familiar character archetypes to the table. The movie starts with Josh Brolin stumbling on some fat stacks that were left over from a drug deal that did not go well for either side. There's like bullet holes in every truck and dead bodies just laying around, and he's just like, you're dead.
Okay, what am I doing?
He's kind of like the outlaw type character. Did something wrong and now he's just constantly on the run. And then there's Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem. He's an absolute psychopath. Like a stone-cold killer whose presence alone just makes you kind of freaked out. And then he finds out Josh Brolin took the leftover money from the drug deal, and the hunt begins. Basically, Josh Brolin leads Chigurh on a wild goose chase that starts in Texas and ends up somewhere in Mexico. Then somewhere along the way, Tommy Lee Jones comes in as a sheriff and tracks both of them down. So you have Josh Brolin and Javier Bardem both playing the typical Western outlaw character who's in pursuit of some hefty load of money. You got Tommy Lee Jones playing a literal sheriff tracking them down, and you, the viewer, watching this movie because someone told you, it's so good. It's a classic. Yee-haw. But yeah, all three of those actors were incredible in their respective roles. I think it's worth noting that it is so incredibly cringy when actors who don't naturally have a southern accent attempt to use one. Like, when you can tell that an actor is intentionally trying to speak with an accent, it's super distracting. Usually just because it reminds you that you are watching a movie and then the experience feels less immersive and then yada yada yada. But both Josh Brolin and Tommy Lee Jones seem to have a pretty solid understanding of what the gritty Texan Southern drawl should sound like. Which, yeah, I myself am not Texan, but I feel like it's fairly obvious when a Texan accent is butchered and when it's done well. Alright, now let's talk about the one thing that people always bring up when they talk about this movie. Javier Bardem as Anton Chigurh. This guy is like by far one of the freakiest psychopaths I think I've ever seen in a movie. I think the scariest thing about him is he doesn't do the whole crooked smile thing where you look at him and just immediately know that something's not right up there. He's got this super serious demeanor, but it's so serious that you know something's wrong. He also has his own set of morals that he uses to justify for every kill that he does. They don't align with anybody except him, so he truly does not feel any remorse for his victims, which I think is what makes him a whole lot scarier. Because in other movies you have the antagonist who will kill for fun or for sport, or there's some kind of reason they're doing it. Either they get high off of it, or there's some kind of repressed trauma, and then that takes you into some backstories. But this character seemed like he was so far removed from the act of killing his victims that it almost felt as though him murdering his victims was done unwillingly, yet he was okay with it. One of the most iconic scenes that has come out of this movie is the coin toss scene, which is where he's in a rural part of Texas and he walks into a gas station and then starts to heckle the clerk. The only reason there was conflict between the two was because he wanted there to be conflict. So he tells the clerk to choose heads or tails without telling him that the outcome of the coin toss will determine whether he lives or not, which just made for a super tense situation. Side note, but related, you know when cats hunt for birds and animals and all that? If they know it's a guaranteed kill, they will still toy with their prey. Even if they rip a bird's wing off, they will still torture the bird until it dies. And that was basically this character. This is Anton Chigurh. This movie also had a lot of open-ended themes, which is to be expected from the Coen brothers. Since they're known for subverting certain genres, the whole time I was constantly asking myself okay, what typically happens in a Western and how are the actions of these characters different from the actions of the characters in a typical Western. And I won't dissect it or anything because I do think the ending really relies on the viewer just as much as it relies on the actors and the whole production of the movie. In other words, when you watch this movie, your specific reaction or response will ultimately determine its meaning. And I mean, like, literally, whatever comes to mind or whatever you take away from the ending of this movie is what it means. Some people like that ambiguity, others don't, but I thought this movie did a really good job of making it clear that it's not trying to make you rethink everything unless you really want to. In other words, it works as both a film and a movie. You can dissect and analyze it all you want and take it as far as you want, but if not, it still functions as an entertaining Western thriller. And you know, the themes that I did find while watching felt like they were conclusions that I came to entirely on my own. The movie just sort of guided me to those conclusions. And I think movies that are able to do that and do it well definitely deserve a spot in history. Because remember, any interpretation is a valid interpretation so long as you can back it with a sound argument or reasonable claims. And this movie gave literally every viewer the opportunity to do so. So, I'm thinking I give No Country for Old Men a 9 out of 10. Let me know what you think. Agree, disagree, whatever, later.